to the Hey Soul Sista podcast, where Mel Histon will guide you through life's big questions and bring you one step closer to doing this crazy journey as best you can.
Hey Soul Sisters. So a couple of years ago, I was in Byron Bay at a Business Chicks conference because you know I love to go to conferences and especially Business Chicks ones. And in the afternoon session, a presenter came on stage and I was mesmerised by her as she shared her amazing work empowering women and communities in Asia and Africa to end world hunger. And that woman is Cathy Burke, and I'm so honoured that Cathy is on Hey Soul Sista today to talk to us about her work and the importance of mindset in our personal and professional lives. Hey Cathy, how you doing?
I'm great, thanks Mel. So good to be here.
I'm really excited to have you on this podcast because we've known each other a couple of years now and I've followed your work and I get your newsletters and you are just doing amazing things in the world. I mean, you've done things on a global scale in terms of ending hunger and working with different communities, and now you're working with people and organisations. I love that. It's all about uplifting and helping people to be better at what they do and leaders to be better at their work.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yes. So you were the CEO of the Hunger Project Australia for 20 years and then became the Global Vice President working to end hunger across South Asia and Africa. That is one massive, big, hairy, audacious goal to end hunger. How did you get into that? How did you first join or become part of the Hunger Project?
Well, it's so weird because I actually got first involved in thinking about stuff more than just my hair and what nightclub I was going to go to through my boyfriend at the time, who was like 10 years older than me, and he started to think, I need to start giving back. What am I going to do? And I thought, what? And he started turning up to these peace group meetings this is in the late 80s and mid to late 80s. And I only turned up, Mel, because I thought those hippies are going to get their talons into my boyfriend because he was actually super handsome. But I went to this meeting and I was there to scope out I was incredibly insecure.
I love your honesty.
I love those, I just scope out the competition. And I was listening to this woman talk about, at the time, sort of peace and disarmament and stuff. And I was just like, fuck. And I just tuned into everything that she said. And I ended up working for her as a volunteer to run her election campaign. At the time, she was an independent senator. I had ditched the boyfriend at this point, and then I went on her staff and helped set up the Greens Party in WA because I'm originally a Perth girl. And she told me about the Hunger Project. And at the time, I was like, oh, my God, ending hunger, it's not possible. It was just overwhelming. And so I was just like, oh, no, that's just too hard. And then when I had my first child, it just became into sharp focus for me, as it does for many people who have babies or have young kids that they love, whether they're theirs or not. And I just, holding my own daughter in my arms, and I just thought, I can't believe that others lose their kids through such totally preventable things like not enough food, dying of diarrhea and all of these things. And so I just got back in contact with the Hunger Project then, and then started volunteering with them, which I did for probably about 5 years, and then I eventually went on staff. That's the very long potted history, Mel, of how I got there.
No, but I love hearing that history, and I love that you started out as a volunteer because I suppose, I ran the charity Got You Back Sister, and we're not global. We're locally based, but, our volunteers are so important, and we love when people become passionate about what we do and become a really important part of our community. And I hear that and I go, that's wonderful, that was you. And then you ended up becoming, joining the staff, and you ended up running it. I love that. And I think as well, it's, I suppose, for people that are passionate about a cause and who are volunteering, that there is opportunities, and I guess that shows that. Thank you for sharing that long story.
No, I think look, everyone has their way to make their contribution, and for some it is through, as a job, and for others it's through volunteering. And even if you have a job doing something that's in a difference-making area, you can then still volunteer in a completely other area. So I just think we all find different ways to make our contribution, and I don't think there's any right way, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I say to people that since doing non-profit work or charity work or whatever you want to call it, I go, nothing fills my soul more than the work I'm doing now compared to any other work I've done in my life. Like, it really does fill your soul.
Want to fill your soul with more? Go to thesistercode.com.
Tell us a little bit about the work that the Hunger Project does over in those communities, because from what I was reading when I was doing some research for today, you know, a lot of that was about teaching leadership and mindset in those communities to actually make change.
Yeah. So if anyone wants to check out the Hunger Project in Australia, just go to thp.org.au and you can find out lots of different stuff there. Look, the essential big idea of the Hunger Project is that certainly hunger exists, yes, but it can end, and it will be the hungry themselves who play the leading role. It won't be people from outside, it'll be people from those communities. And one of the things that distinguishes the Hunger Project is that in each country, there's only people from that country working there. So I don't want anyone having any ideas that I was there sort of living and showing the way or anything like that at all. I absolutely wasn't. In Bangladesh, it's run by this incredible committed team of Bangladeshis, and the same for people in Malawi and that. So my role was to support and do whatever I could to help their programs work and support them in the way they can. So getting back to the big idea, if it is that the hungry themselves play the lead role, then the first part is that when people have been living with hunger for such a long time, you can completely understand people are ground down. They don't see any other way than the way that they've currently got, particularly if you're a woman and you've been grown up to be told that you're worthless, that you shouldn't even be educated, you get married young, you can't exercise the same rights and responsibilities that other citizens do. When you've always been hungry, you just think that's just your lot in life and your future just looks like that. And the mindset really is one of, it's always been this way, it always stayed this way, and there's nothing I can do about it. I just hope Allah intervenes or God saves me because I can't do anything. And so shifting that mindset is like the first sort of fundamental thing that the Hunger Project does. And so it's having people come into a realisation that just because things have been this way, they don't need to stay this way. And what are the steps that I can take to start to move in the direction of my own power and my own agency? And then how do we work together collectively to make that change? So it's very deep work, it's very powerful work, it's very transformational work, and it takes time. Mel, like that sort of stuff, which I know your listeners will totally understand. It's not just like one seminar you go to and then you think, woohoo, yeah, I'm an empowered woman and I'm going to make shit happen. It takes a lot to rewire that mental circuitry, if you like, from thinking that you're not good enough to actually seeing that you are. And we can get this, even though none of us sort of most of us at least haven't lived in that sort of level of deprivation. We have our own mindsets, our own beliefs that we're not quite good enough, or we've gotten ground down by what's happened to us, and then we start to believe that that's who we are. And I guess one of my central missions, and I certainly learnt this from the work that I did for so long, is actually challenging that. That's not who we are. We may have developed beliefs around that, and we may have moulded our personality to reflect that by losing confidence or whatever. But actually at our core, that's not who we are. And the gatekeeper to changing those beliefs is our mindset.
So in layman's terms, what is mindset? Because I suppose in this, I hear more and more, and usually in quotes on social media and that sort of thing, people talking about, they've got an abundance mindset, they've got a poverty mindset, they've got this, but at the end of the day, what is it? What is our mindset?
Our mindset is a belief that we have about ourselves, about a situation we're in, or about someone else. It doesn't have to be a bad view or a good view. But so when it's a good, helpful mindset, you may have a mindset that, yeah, I've got this, I can do this. That's a positive mindset. So that's fine. That's helping you in your life. But it's when you have these beliefs and they're persistent that they block you. So it's something that you want to do or be, Mel, and you're just blocked. It's like you just can't quite get out of your own way. You're second-guessing yourself. And it's the same kind of thing you're saying to yourself quite often, like, I'm not good enough, or I'm just not confident enough. To me, that's a mindset. It's like a persistent belief that gets in our way, that we believe is true. We've got evidence for it. And an analogy I use, it's like we put on a pair of glasses. So I put on a pair of glasses, and they may be a pair of red glasses. And over time, I forget I'm wearing these glasses, Mel, so everything looks red. But it's when I take it off, I get to see, oh, okay, well, maybe that was just the lens that I was seeing the world in. And mindsets are like that. We're just wearing constant pairs of glasses, and we forget actually that it's not actually how the world is. It's just how I'm seeing the world.
That is such a great analogy. Because, and I think it's something that we can all relate to, like, because we've all done that. We've all put on the tinted glasses, and then you take them off, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realise I'd been looking green. But actually it's not. I mean, great. That's a great metaphor, great analogy. So in saying that, mindset really is super important because it shapes how we see the world every day. So how are our mindsets formed? Because I could say when I look around at people who are in my life, without having them have done quizzes or, any testing or anything like that, I could see that people have all different ways in which they view the world. And where does that come from?
Yeah, and also mindsets they're not like I only see the world like this all the time. So I can have like a really positive, expansive mindset when I think about something, and then I can have a really kind of limiting one when I think about something else. So we don't just have like one like mindset. I'm like limited and fixed, or the other. Like they move in and out. Look, a lot of them are formed in childhood, Mel, when we pick up cues in the world and we try to figure out how stuff works. So we pick up beliefs from our family, and often things that are said about us. Oh, you're a good girl. You're a kind girl. And in fact, one of my clients is a woman in Japan and runs a really successful. She works for a really large company there. And her mindset of I'm good and kind and helpful was really ingrained in her from childhood. And in fact, her name in Japanese means that. So when it came to being able to have a tough conversation with some of her people on her team, she really struggled because having that difficult conversation was so counter to the belief she had about herself that had been built into her from childhood, that you're kind and considerate and really helpful. And so it was being able to see, oh my God, that's actually just a mindset. It's not actually who I am as a person. I can still be kind and have a tough, difficult conversation with one of my staff, and that was what she was able to do. So a lot of them come from what, like a teacher may have said to you. You may have got praised for writing, for instance, which was true for me, and got kind of criticised for not doing maths well. And so I then, without thinking about it, I'm 5 years old, I just think, I make a decision, Mel, of like, oh, I'm not good at maths. I'm just going to leave numbers alone, and I get the praise for writing, and that's just what I'm going to do more of, for instance. And we don't realise over time, that you're sort of living, that gets to be your lane, and you just sort of mould your life into the beliefs that you have. Like my family were criticised a lot, like just issues with different things, and so I start to develop a mindset of not wanting to be criticised. So I sort of stick to what it is I know I'm good at to avoid that. And over time, these just become beliefs, and we start to think that's who we really are. But actually, the deeply ingrained ones are also mindsets, essentially. Yeah. And the good news is that all the research shows that even if you do have a mindset that you've had for a long time and you know what it is and it gets in your way, they can be changed. So all of the research, and certainly my experience as well, shows that even if you've got mindsets that are not helpful for you, you can change them.
So, it's interesting. Years ago, when I was working for a government organisation, I think I was in a team of would there have been 10 of us, maybe 12. I was in the marketing communications team. And we had like a team retreat day, and we had a facilitator come, and she did Myers-Briggs with the whole team. And it was really interesting because it was really great to get insights into ourselves and also other members of the team and go, oh, I can see why I might butt up against that person. I can see why we get along, why we work really well together. And it's funny, my Myers-Briggs type was an ENFP. And when I did the little analysis on that, it was like, you're a really great worker bee, you're a really great team player, but you're not a leader or a manager. And so I'm going to be honest, that has stuck with me. Like that was some, say 18 years ago, and that has stuck with me ever since. And it's something that I've really struggled with. And so I went to Nepal back in 2014, felt compelled to do something. Before I started the Got You Back Sister charity, I started a community called the Sister Code and holding fundraisers and did this Got You Back Sister Day because I wanted to do something positive. I didn't know what that was like because I'd seen all this suffering over in Nepal of women experiencing abuse and a lot of sexual abuse. And anyway, I was really stuck around that. I had lots of people saying they wanted to be involved, but I felt like a complete fraud. And I went to Sydney and spent half a day with a woman who was doing some like coaching. And she said to me, well, you're a leader. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm like, and she goes, yes, you are. You're leading this. And I was like, no, but I'm like, my Myers-Briggs told me back then, it was like 10 years ago, that no, I'm not a leader, I'm a worker bee. I'm a really good team player. I'm not a leader. And that kind of, she made me really look at that. But it's interesting that has stuck with me all those years, and I can get real imposter syndrome around that. I'm being incredibly vulnerable in sharing that right now, but it's true, and it's something that I have had to go on this whole journey on, and actually trying to develop myself in terms of leadership and that mindset around leadership, which is why I love you. And the work that you do. And I love seeing you speak. I saw you speak again at the Business Chicks retreat back in May, and I got so much from that.
Want to fill your soul with more? Go to thesistercode.com.
Do you find in your work now, because you actually are coaching and working with people and organisations around mindset, does anybody else come up against that, like me, that whole belief around who they are as a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for sharing that, Mel. And I think it's such a good example too of how we can read one thing and we hear one thing about ourselves, and we then kind of meld our life to mean it. But I actually think so many of your listeners, even if they had, didn't have that specific experience, so many women, we don't think we're leaders. And this is one of in fact, the book that I'm writing at the moment and should be out at the end of November, it's just at the editors now, it's called The Leader's Mindset, because women in particular don't believe that we're leaders, and we hold back from leadership. And it's a big part of that is because we've internalised a very old view, very old paradigm, masculine view about what leadership is. And we've seen leadership as like, you're older, male, charismatic, decisive, alpha in some way. And we look at that and we just think, that we don't see ourselves in that. And so we don't think that we are. And in fact, speaking about Business Chicks, we used to run these leadership immersion programs to countries where women would go to villages and learn about leadership. And to apply for it, one of the questions was, what kind of leader are you? And there must have been over the years probably, 300 women who applied for these programs. And I would say, Mel, a good at least 95% of women would say, I'm not really comfortable with this question. I don't really see myself as a leader. Just all of this sort of stuff. And by any stretch of the imagination, they were all leaders. And it's because we have this old definition, and I think it's really important for us to claim our inherent leadership, and that we are leaders if we're making an impact, and leaders don't look a certain way, and all of us have the ability. It's just not a person, and it's not a personality trait, as you were duped into by that kind of Myers-Briggs test. And one of my big passions is us reclaiming our ability to make an impact and to lead in a way that we can. I mean, we're facing huge challenges in the world. We're facing our next mass extinction. We need so many, and we all have this, so many of us have this ache, this sort of ache in our own heart, this yearning to be more and to contribute more and to express ourself. And that takes leadership, and that's the sort of leadership that I'm interested in unlocking, and that's the sort of And so that's why when you're feel like an imposter syndrome, it's like you're not. Like, I get that you feel that way, but maybe an imposter to that really old version of leadership, which is like, but actually you're to fully embrace your quirky, bold, passionate, heart-centered, outrageous, amazing sense of you as a leader, Mel, fully unleashed, fully unfettered in Newcastle and in the world. That's the sort of leadership that, like, for you to own that's not being an imposter at all. That's like fully owning your Melness of leadership.
I actually just got a moment of complete excitement then going, I'm going to own my Melness of leadership. I love that. I love it. You're right, because it's so true. It's like, because there's all these paradigms that we have about what that should look like, what leadership should look like. I'm totally going to own that. My Melness of leadership. Now, you've put out a white paper around leadership and mindset, which I haven't gotten all the way through, but I've been reading, and you talk about different types of mindsets: fixed and growth mindsets, and limited and expansive mindsets. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about that? Because I found that really interesting, and I kind of was doing a bit of a self-analysis around that as to, okay, where I need to improve on, where I think I'm going okay. And then I'll share a bit about how I did your quiz online, and I'm interested in what you think of my results.
I haven't seen the results yet, so yeah, you'll have to share them. I'll have to haven't gone onto the app to have a look. The big research around mindsets was pioneered by a Stanford professor called Carol Dweck, probably 35 years ago, and she researched mindsets in schools and kids. And she was the one who came up with the terms fixed and growth mindsets. So a fixed mindset, there's many different ways it can play out, but it's when you believe you can't change, you've kind of picked your lane and you have to stay in there. And really it's about, you've got a certain amount of skills and they're your skills, and you can't really develop skills anywhere else. So going back to my example of just not very good at maths, but I'm really good at writing, it would mean that, I can never change I'll just never do anything that's maths related. Whereas a growth mindset means that, you may have some natural attributes, and we all sort of do, but you can grow and learn in all areas. So I can still grow and become good at maths. I can still learn to read a P&L, for instance, or you don't so much believe in natural talent. You know that if I keep practicing and learning, I can keep growing and evolving. And she has like different sort of examples around that. And then in the work that I'd done, I sort of telescoped out a little bit from fixed and growth, but also see it in terms of having a limited mindset, and that often is around leadership. So I can't lead, or you can't lead. You don't see things are possible. You feel very resigned. You feel hopeless. You feel overwhelmed. That's really having limited mindset. And then the expansive is the opposite of that, where you see that something may be possible, that change is possible, that I can lead, that maybe others can lead also. Yeah, you just have more an expanded sense of the world, what's possible, and your relationship.
Okay, I'm going to let you know the results of my quiz. So if you go to Cathy Burke's website, cathyburke.com, she has a quiz on there, and it's the Leader's Mindset Diagnostic Quiz. So I jumped online and did that this morning. It didn't take too long. It was great. And so I'll tell you where I scored. So there are 4 areas. There's leadership, growth mindset, confidence, and team. So on the leadership, I scored 75%. On the growth mindset, I scored 50%. A bit of work to do there. Okay, this is interesting. This really shocked me. The confidence. Cath, I got 100%, which I'm like going, that's weird, because I've just shared with you, like, I get imposter syndrome around the whole leadership thing, which is weird. Anyways, and team, I scored 43. So I'm guessing there's some work for me to do there.
Yeah, the team is often one that's a low one, but with your confidence, Mel, I mean, knowing you, I'm not surprised at 100%. And I actually hope that, I think as women, we often think we have a view of ourselves as not very confident. And so many women say, I just want to improve my confidence. If I had more confidence. But sometimes I think we think that about ourselves, but when you actually drill into it, we're getting awesome shit done and actually doing things. So sometimes our narrative about, I'm just not very confident, is counteracted by the results and how people show up. And I'm sure none of your listeners would be surprised at 100% confidence there. And also leadership and growth mindset too. But what was your takeaway from it, Mel? Like, where did you feel that sort of resonated, or what surprised you about what you learned from that?
I was surprised by the confidence. The leadership, I was pleasantly surprised, I'm going to be honest, because I have that old belief in my head. And it's funny, like many of us as women, I know that I can go, oh, what do other people think of me as a leader? You know what I mean? Worrying about what other people think. And that's something I've been working on, is to go, actually, I need to, like, you want people to respect you, but you don't want to be a slave to what other people think. And with the growth mindset, I thought I might have been a little bit higher on that. So I kind of went back and I was reading your white paper and looking at, the fixed and limited mindsets. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I do get a bit, okay, this is how we've always done it. But then I also go, there are times when we come up against a wall. Like if we come up against a roadblock, I'm like, I know I'm very good at very quickly going and analysing that and going, right, this is the way we need to go. Like, and changing direction very quickly. So I go, oh, I know I can do that. So I don't fall in a heap and, and cry, get in the fetal position in the corner of the room. I'm like, no, right, okay, we need to look for some solutions, come up with some. So I know that I'm good at that. I can very quickly come up with different alternatives, do a quick analysis and then go, right, this is the right way forward.
I'll have a look at how you answered the questions and I'll send you an email with it. Just for listeners who are reading, I'm not actually sure that it's actually on the website. So what to do is, I think you got it through the newsletter. So
yes.
If people want to join the newsletter, please do so. It's free. It comes out once a week, and you do go to cathyburke.com, and that's just on the tab on the front page. Just click join the newsletter. And then it's through there. I have that information in the newsletter of how to do the leader's mindset thing in there. So, or just send me an email through the website.
Yeah, and I highly recommend it. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't grow if we can't actually self-reflect and look at ourselves and go, okay, where can I do better? Really. So I think it's great. I highly recommend reach out to Cathy and subscribe and get the quiz link and do it and see what you find.
Want to save your soul? Review us on Apple Podcast.
Now, I was reading one of your articles and I just want to read this quote that was in one of the articles. You said, Stephen Covey wrote in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that being busy doing stuff is not effective if we're not sharpening the saw. Spending time labouring away, expending energy inefficiently is not smart. Take time to ensure our tools are in the best shape is. Mindsets is one of our biggest tools. Working on them is sharpening the saw. That is a very big lead into how can we sharpen the saw with our mindset?
So one of the things with mindsets is that what was happening when we come up against difficulties is often stuff's happening in our environment. So you'll get a cross email from a client, your kid gets sick on the day, you've got a big something happen, COVID, all of these things. And so we spend so much energy trying to fix the external situation rather than working on how we're reacting to stuff, so being less reactive. So I have a process, and I think that's in the white paper, and it's a 4-step process, and it's firstly notice your mindset. So we don't notice it because we just think that's just how we are and how our situation is. So notice, what am I actually thinking about this situation? How am I reacting? Like, what's really going on here? And then you question it and you think, well, is it true that I'm worthless because, or I'm stupid, or I can't do anything because, and I've got different ways that people can question it. And then you choose a new mindset. Think, okay, well, I'm now going to show up as brave in this conversation, or I'm going to choose to actually take 10 minutes off to recharge, and then I'm going to come back with a fresh perspective. And then you take that action. So it's a constant process. It's not like a one-stop shop. It's just constantly bringing our attention to what am I thinking? And then your question is, what I'm thinking even true? And then how do I want to think about this? And then what action do I want to take? And it's just this circular thing that I use like all the time, Mel, because I get stopped, what am I doing? Is this right? Thing, but I've got a way of sort of cutting through it much quicker now. And I also have a lot of compassion for myself because, and this is the thing about mindsets, like we think it's got the word mind in it, so it's all about our mind, but actually so much of it's about our own heart. It's about bringing compassion to our fears, to the stories we've told ourselves, to just what's really going on for us, because often our reaction isn't anything to do with the situation. It can trigger some older story of, like, one of mine is Cathy. I was a really bad asthmatic growing up, and I was never picked for the netball team. Never picked for the netball team. It's so weird. I know, but it's so weird how if I perceive that I'm not included in something or I'm not wanted in something, wow, it's just like 10-year-old asthmatic wheezy Cathy, she's just there and it's not even conscious. I notice that I'm immediately like, oh, I'm feeling a bit left out. Why am I not included? And then I think that's a mindset. So then I can see, that's fine. Like, little Cathy, you're okay. And then big Cathy can just think, okay, that's fine. I'm not included in this. That's perfectly appropriate. And I can go on to the next thing. So when you're really doing, like when I work with people, I run a program called Rising, Mel, and I'm just about to launch an online community for women, which I'll be sending you information about.
Please send me information about that.
I will, because so much of it, it's not just like, I'm going to like a machine work out my mindset. It's actually giving space to our frailties, our vulnerabilities. That actually we're human. It's fine that I feel like that, and that's just little 8-year-old Cathy, and just letting her feel loved and not abandoned. And then I can step into my current Cathy and make my decisions and my choices. It's like a very healing way to incorporate us as full leaders, means to be able to incorporate all of us, our frailties, our little feelings of being neglected, or all of that sort of stuff, and embracing it into us so that we can then choose to rise and lead in a way that works for us. But it's in a new paradigm. It's not about papering that over or hardening ourselves up to it. So, that's part of a mindset process, as well as being kind to yourself. That if you find yourself negative, trash talking yourself, it's like, I'm noticing that. That's probably a mindset. What is that really how I want to talk to myself? What would be a loving way to talk to myself? And then choosing to practice that in that way. It's a constant thing though, Mel. There's no like silver bullet to it, but I find it's been a beautiful process of growth for me over the last 30-odd years.
Yeah, well, definitely send me that information. And if anybody else is interested in learning more about Cathy's program, Rising, is that okay for them to send you fill out the form on your website as well to get further information?
Yep, definitely. Yep,
awesome.
That'd be great.
Let's get soulful on social media. Search the Sister Code Facebook page and follow us on Instagram.
Can we transform someone else's mindset?
Well, no, you can't, because only you can do your own work. But that is the last chapter in the book, actually. Like, how do I share? Because it's true. How do I share this with others? So, in organisations, particularly that I work with, I do all this like leaders mindset work with them, and they're like totally all on board, and all the leadership teams are doing it and stuff. But then they're like, how can I get Kelly from accounts to do this? She really needs this.
Her mindset sucks.
How do I fix my team? Yeah, how do I fix my team? Like, they're so, like, their mindset's so negative. They really need this. And I totally get it, because I feel like we all do need it. But I've devoted the last chapter of the book and it starts off with a whole bunch of do's and don'ts. And one of them is don't do it to try and fix them. Because if that's what you're trying to do, then that's your mindset issue. Yeah. But if you're doing it because you just see that more is available to them, that that you just want them to grow into their potential, you see the leaders that they can be, then absolutely, yes. And I have a whole way of doing that, But it's so funny. I've just rewritten the edits for that chapter this morning. Yeah, you can. But as I said, there's do's and don'ts. But first do the work yourself before you try to start inflicting it on other people, because it will be inflicting. You'll be trying to fix them and judging them, or, oh, look at Ben. Ben in sales is, look, his mindset's just really fucked. And it's like, yeah, well, maybe it is, but your mindset needs the work first. It's like they say on the aeroplanes, fix your own mask.
I love it. Fix your own mask first. Tell us again. So the name of the book is The Mindset Process.
Well, I was calling it that, but it's actually called The Leader's Mindset. And I think it will be out certainly by beginning of December, but hopefully by the end of November.
And so to find out more information about you and your work, and if people have any inquiries or would like to do your quiz or read your white paper, just go to cathyburke.com, and that's Cathy with a C.
Burke, it's not Burke as in Burke Street, Melbourne. It's CathyBurke.com.
Well, I just want to thank you for coming on Hey Soul Sista, because you really are such an inspirational woman. And I know we throw around the term inspiration a lot of we can, but I go, you really are. Like, all the work you have done helping people rise around the world, and now you're doing it for people here. I just think you're awesome, and I can't wait to hear about rising. And thanks so much for joining us on Hey Soul Sista.
Woohoo, you're most welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Hey Soul Sista with Mel Histon. What would help you on your crazy life journey? Email Melissa at thesistercode.com.